I'm Brandi Kruse. Coming up today on Undivided, in a win for Sanity, a notorious gender clinic in Washington state is finally closing its doors. Plus, two bills proposed as a result of an undivided whistleblower report are getting a hearing today in Olympia, and Democratic lawmakers trying to interfere with school choice. That and much more coming up today on Undivided. Remember, you can support our show for just $5 a month by signing up at undividedpod.com. That's undividedpod.com. Click on the banner that says support the show. Hello, friends, and welcome to Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. I'm Brandi Kruse. It is a good day for common sense. A notorious gender clinic in Washington state is finally closing its doors. It's not going to serve future clients. It's not going to serve present clients. Now, we knew this was coming, but here's the headline from the Seattle Times, which I feel like really makes it feel and be official. Mary Bridge Children's Hospital to close gender clinic. The Children's Hospital, of course, is part of Multicare. It's in Tacoma. This is a story that we've been covering for a long time on the show, several years now, and it actually goes back to a Free Press article from a whistleblower named Tamara Pitsky, who we've had on the show now several times. We've become very close with and admire her bravery, but she published a whistleblower report in the Free Press several years ago. The headline, "I was told to approve all teen gender transitions. I refused." And she was a therapist for Multicare and was basically told, hey, when these kids come to you, don't question what's going on with them. Don't question whether there's other issues in their life besides this gender dysphoria. Just sign the paper. Just sign the paper and send them to the gender clinic so we can butcher them. And that came out, and it was really one of the first times that there had been a whistleblower in a position like that. Then President Donald Trump comes into office, and as you know, one of the first executive orders he signed, one of the first things he did is to start to try to threaten funding for medical institutions who were performing this butchery on children. And we published an exclusive report mid the first year of President Trump's term. Exclusive Washington State Hospital quietly reforms gender clinic, and in it we published a letter that had been sent internally dated July 17th, 2024 from Multicare that basically, Nicole, you could pull this up, that basically just talked about the updates that they were going to make. It was from Bill Robertson, the CEO, updates they were going to make to Mary Bridge Children's Gender Health Services. And at the time, they made it pretty clear that, hey, we're going to start to wind this thing down. We're not going to take any new patients, but they said at the time that they were going to continue to serve existing patients. And I hate using the word patients for this. That being kids who they want to mutilate. That being kids who they want to help skip puberty. And so now even that is coming to an end, and the gender clinic is going to close in its entirety. A couple things from the Seattle Times coverage of this. Mary Bridge Children's Hospital in Tacoma plans to shut down its gender clinic this week under mounting federal pressure to ban all gender-affirming health care for trans youth. Hospital leaders announced the decision in a Monday memo to employees, writing that, quote, recent developments at the federal level threaten to halt Medicaid and Medicare payments to the entire Multicare health system, which owns Mary Bridge, if it continues to offer gender-affirming health services to minors. Multicare CEO Bill Robertson writing in this memo kind of a similar sentiment to the memo that we broke back in July. He said this was an incredibly painful decision and one I wish we did not have to make. We recognize how important this care is to our gender health clinic patients and have a sense of the impact this will have on these patients and their families. So obviously one of the first things that bothers me, even though this is a win, anytime one of these gender clinics closes down, it's a victory. I feel like they're doing it because of the money aspect of it. They're doing it because the president is forcing their hand. I wish you would have this CEO, and maybe his hands are tied, I don't know, but I wish you would have people at the hospital say, you know what, thank God this dark chapter in medicine is behind us. Thank God that we're not going to participate because of what science told us, because all these studies saying that kids are more likely to kill themselves if they don't get this sort of care, have been debunked, and that data was cherry picked to try to push this agenda on kids across the world. If only they would come out and say, look, our understanding of this is changing. Europe has changed course on this, and it's time for us to change course on it too. No, but it has to be President Donald Trump threatening to take money away from them for other medical procedures and medical actual care. So, but I'll take it. I just really want us to get to that point where people acknowledge and admit that what they were doing was wrong. So here's the fundamental change that's taking place from, July when they said, hey, we're winding all of this down, to now. It says Mary Bridge cut its gender clinic wait list of about 150 families in September, confirming then that the clinic would continue to serve those who were already receiving gender-affirming medication like hormone therapy and puberty blockers, but would not start any new medical treatments. This week's news means cutting off care to the clinic's remaining patients, roughly 320 young people, including 180 under the age of 18, who will now have to get their prescriptions renewed or find gender-affirming medical health care elsewhere. I look at that as 320 lives saved. And 180 under the age of 18. Oh, I thought, it's very rare for a kid under the age of 18 to be trying to medically transition. No, not in Washington state. That's 320 lives saved. And I just wish it was being saved for the right reasons. I wish it was being saved because we know that this is wrong and history is going to look not too kindly on this period of time in medicine. So, but this is, and I think for Tamara Pitsky, certainly a significant moment for her. Her life was upended over her simple decision to say, this is what I was being mandated to do, and it's time to tell the truth about it. She lost her job. She published the Free Press op-ed. She lost the job she had gotten after Mary Bridge and after Multicare. She went into private practice, and that's hard, struggling to try to find a client base. But now she's actually helping kids in the way that she believes they need to be helped. And for this to finally come full circle was such an awesome headline to see this morning as we woke up. So we'll have more on this, I'm sure. And I just pray that more of these gender clinics close down and that they don't just start back up after President Trump leaves office. Oh my gosh, so much is at stake. And I am so grateful to have that man in the White House. I don't agree with every single thing he does. People call me a MAGA, blah, blah, blah. That's okay. Call me MAGA if it means that we can have a president in the White House who doesn't want to butcher kids. Guilty. All right, speaking of whistleblowers, as we speak right now in the Senate Housing Committee in Olympia, there is a hearing going on, and part of it is two bills that are a result of this whistleblower report that we put out at the end of October. State Equity Program became a fund for personal enrichment, and in this we exposed, with the help of a brave whistleblower, Corey Orvold, we exposed self-dealing in Washington's Community Reinvestment Program. Of course, you'll remember that the Community Reinvestment Program became basically a $250 million reparations fund. It was a fund that Democrats in Olympia put together to help people they said were impacted by the war on drugs. And it was essentially free taxpayer money for people of color to buy houses, to pay off personal credit card debt, to be able to start a business. The list goes on and on and on. And that $250 million was split up between all these BIPOC nonprofits across the state, like the Metropolitan of Seattle Urban League, which was featured very prominently in our story. And we found out through our whistleblower and through documentation, there's no denial of this, that a lot of this money, millions of dollars, was used by these BIPOC nonprofits to enrich themselves, to give their family members money to buy a house, to give themselves money to pay off personal credit card debt. And there were so many examples of this. So as a result, Republicans are backing two bills to try to fix some of the central issues that were brought up in our whistleblower report. One of them we already talked about on the show. It is being sponsored by Senator John Braun. It is Senate Bill 6205. And this one is so common sense. It's so common sense. That's why I'm eagerly awaiting what people are going to say against it, because you basically would come forward and say, yeah, I'm against trying to prohibit fraud, which is a very strange thing. But what this does is it gets rid of that sort of self-dealing element of this program in saying if you're one of these BIPOC nonprofits that is entrusted with this taxpayer money to get it out to community members who qualify and are in need for whatever reason, then you can't spend the money on yourself. You can't spend the money on family members. You can't benefit in any sort of way. Like you can't push business off to loan officers and real estate agents who then give you a cut of the money, for example. So here's Senator John Braun this morning introducing this bill in front of the Senate Housing Committee.
It's really meant to address some credible reporting we saw last summer about what could be characterized as misuse of some of these funds, or at least maybe double dealing, where folks who had some sort of relationship to the nonprofit that was allocating the funding, either perhaps on a board member, perhaps a family member of a board member, were getting what appears, at least at the top level, special treatment and getting multiple grants for the same purchase of a house, while others who were also well qualified were being told there was just no funds available to help them. I think, these are all programs that have been debated in the legislature, and we didn't all agree on the program in some cases, but they are now law. We're trying to, and we should be trying on a nonpartisan basis to execute them well. It's really about just good government. So all the bill does is try to make consistent that we're looking at the same things when we allocate funding, income, family size, the things that would drive need. It doesn't change the underlying programs in any way. And then we have audits that make sure as the money is spent, that it's spent wisely and carefully.
Yeah, and again, that should be non-controversial. And in fact, I think there's an element of it that's a little redundant, because when we were doing this whistleblower report, of course, we set out to find out, is this actually prohibited? And to my estimation, and I think that's why you have an investigation into some of what we revealed by the Department of Commerce and the Office of Attorney General, is when you have a state contract, there's a portion in that contract about conflicts of interest. And I would say that it's a pretty glaring conflict of interest to give your coworker, sign off on a loan for your coworker, forgive credit card debt for yourself, help your daughter buy a house. I would say that pretty well fits the definition of conflict of interest. But this is taking it not just in the contractual language, but into state law. So we're continuing to monitor that. The public testimony continues. The second bill that is a direct result of our whistleblower report is Senate Bill 6167. We had State Representative April Connors on the show recently to talk about this. Her bill version of this in the House isn't being given a hearing, but the version that Republicans put forth, the matching bill in the Senate, is getting a hearing as we speak in Olympia. And this would prevent stacking. So it says it's an act relating to prohibiting homebuyers from receiving multiple state-funded down payment assistance loans or grants. This is a result of an element of our story having to do with a woman named Asia Williams. So you'll remember Asia Williams is the daughter of Angela Williams, who works for the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle and is involved in doling out these taxpayer funds. Well, Asia Williams ended up buying a house, and she got not only community reinvestment program funds from her mom's employer, but to buy this house, which was $424,000, she also got $99,000 in funds from the Washington State Housing Finance Commission for a different reparations program, Covenant Homeownership. She got that $100,000 in community reinvestment program funds from United Housing Resources, $100,000 in community reinvestment program funds through the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, again, where her mom works, $50,000 in community reinvestment program funds through Beard Bar Place, a Seattle-based nonprofit. And so she got a total of $350,000, one person, toward the purchase of a $420,000 home. Her ultimate loan amount was just $89,960. And this was something that our whistleblower saw over and over and over. You had all these people who, of course, want to make use of this program where they get free money in order to have a down payment for a house. And they're being turned away saying, hey, we're out of money. We're out of money. Can't help you. Well, someone like Asia Williams, whose mother works for the Urban League and is involved in these programs, gets $350,000 toward the down payment of a home. And so that is what Senate Bill 6167 tries to prohibit, is saying, hey, we've got Covenant Homeownership Program, which helps people of color buy a house. We've got Community Reinvestment Program, which helps people of color buy houses and do other things. Let's spread the love around. I mean, the programs themselves are racist, and I don't think they should exist at all. But as long as there's a Democratic majority, those are going to be here. So it just basically says, hey, no double dipping, right? No self-dealing, no double dipping. Let's make sure it's all above board. Now, as I said, we are waiting for our whistleblower to testify. The hearing is going on pretty long today, so we'll likely play for you what she had to say on tomorrow's show. But I looked at the list of names that were signed in pro and con for and against these bills, and there were a couple of very familiar names. And I almost thought to myself, no way they had the audacity. No way they had the audacity to put their name down publicly. So one of the names signed in against the bill that prevents stacking, who do you think it is? Angela Williams. the mom of Asia Williams, who got $350,000 thanks to Stack It in order to buy a home. Also, Linda Taylor, who is one of the highest up people at the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle, who deals directly with their loan programs. So they want to continue the self-dealing. They want to continue the double dipping. And it's been good for them. It's been good for their colleagues. It's been good for their family. It's been good for their friends. I was actually, though, I have to say, I was surprised that they were willing. That to me is like a stamp of approval for fraud, a stamp of approval for double dealing, a stamp of approval for self-dealing. So we will see what happens as this hearing rolls on. I do want to point out, though, during Senator Braun's testimony introducing the bill, he also talked about this period of time we're in, right, where there is a lot of attention on fraud right now, in part because of what happened in Minneapolis. And he said he's hearing it from a lot of constituents. And so he said, you know, whether this continues in these programs or not, it's important for the public to believe that we take fraud seriously.
There's a deep frustration with folks. We've had a lot of attention in the news about fraudulent activity, and I can't say I know no more than you do whether it's real or it's not real. We should take it seriously in either case. If there has been misuse, there should be consequences. If there hasn't been misuse, the public should know that. We have to build trust if we're going to be successful long term, and that's what this bill fundamentally is about. It's about making sure that we're doing a good job with these funds and sharing that with the public in a transparent way to build that long-term trust. If we want to have programs like this today and in the future, the public has to believe we're doing what we said we would do, and that's what fundamentally this bill is about.
Yeah, again, non-controversial. And if you really care about helping people of color achieve home ownership and all these things, then you should want to make sure that as many people as possible can access that program and that it's not being abused by insiders. It would really be very telling if Democrats don't advance both of these bills out of committee. So we're going to wait as public testimony continues. They have a whole list of bills they're hearing during the Senate Housing Committee and just haven't gotten to public testimony on these two yet. And so it's likely that we'll talk about that tomorrow and play the testimony from our whistleblower, Corey Orvold, who I know this moment means a lot to her too, because it's more than a year in the making for her trying to get people to pay attention to this issue. So to have two bills that really are a result of her more than they are of our reporting of what she dug up, I think is pretty substantial. Coming up next, Democrats continue to try to erode the very few school choice options that parents have. We'll discuss the latest attack. First, we get endless wonderful stories from Undivided viewers and listeners about First Mark Insurance, and they're now members of the First Mark family, and they're encouraging other people to make that call to First Mark as well. Debbie S. says First Mark is the absolute best. We're 70 years old. We'd rather gouge out our eyes than shop insurance companies for all our cars, boat, house, ATVs. Side note, it seems like Debbie's having a great retirement. All our cars, our boat, our ATVs. You go, Debbie. Good for you. She says, one-stop shopping with First Mark, excellent rates and coverage. Anytime we've had a question or had to make a change, it was addressed and dealt with immediately. It's so comforting having them in our corner. Highly recommend. And that's how I feel, too. It really is having someone in our corner. I mean, we use Undivided for our business and my home, but I had someone at our business landlords email me for a document. I'm like, I don't know where the hell that document is. So I just looped in First Mark. I'm like, handle this. And they did right away. And I thought that was great. FirstMarkInsurance.com, FirstMarkInsurance.com. The very best part is they work for you, not the insurance companies. They always have your best interest in mind. And you don't pay anything to take the First Mark Challenge. So see how much money you could save today. All right. Democrats, of course, don't want anyone being homeschooled. God forbid we have universal school choice. Can't have that. But even the limited options that we have, that parents have in our state, outside of the public school system that won't cost them an arm and a leg like private school, even that is unacceptable for Democrats and their overlords at the Washington Education Association. Let's talk about it in our segment. Unbelievable. We were inundated this morning, and the emails continue to roll in from people saying, Brandi, have you heard about this? What's going on? We're panicking. A woman named Haley emailed us, said, hello, my children go to Washington State Online Public School, Washington State Connections Academy. I logged on to school today to see that a new bill went into effect that may take our school away. Do you know about this? My kids burst into tears at the thought of their school closing down. Sarah said, please help us. Senate Bill 6320 attacks parental rights to place students in online learning environments. This would be detrimental to our state and our school system. So this stuff is just, I mean, it's so shady. It is so shady. So there's two bills, one of them attacking online learning, the other one attacking parents who want to homeschool their kids. So we'll go through both of them. We also got this email forwarded to us. It was sent out from Washington Virtual Academies this morning, and it talks about SB 6320, which we'll detail in a moment. And it told parents who have kids who go to these virtual schools, if this bill passes, it eliminates WAVA as an option, and that's virtual academies, for continued schooling and requires the school to close by August 26th. So you have one of these schools, Washington Virtual Academy, which helps in the OMAC school district, that says we will close if this bill passes, eliminating this as an option for parents. So here's the bill. Senate Bill 6320 says an act relating to alternative learning experiences. Okay. So basically what this does is and we reached out to our friend Travis Couture this morning because he was actually alerting us to this bill, and he tried to explain what it does in a very simplistic way. And he's more of an expert on this than me, so I want to kind of share what he said about this. So he said this is going to quietly change the funding rules. So public schools can't use private or for-profit online schools. So he says this is a big deal. He says right now LEA, which is Local Effort Assistance, was part of the McCleary decision. And he said it was an answer to levies being used for basic ed funding and equalization. He said LEA helps small and rural districts that are property poor who can't raise local levy funds like property rich districts can. He says the levies are assessed by property valuations. He says those schools don't get state money directly, but districts enroll the students, collect the funding, and then pay the online provider through a contract. So you've got these private online schools. And so the districts enroll the students. They collect the funding, but then they pay the online provider if kids want to basically learn online. He said if a provider doesn't meet the new definition, and none of these private ones would, the district can't claim the funding, which makes the model financially impossible. He said that's why these online learning academies are raising alarm bells. And he says essentially what this is meant to do is to pressure districts to steer families back to traditional public school. And we know why they want that. I mean, they get more money, but also they are right now going through all this, funding, oh my gosh, tax the rich and all these things at a time when enrollment is declining. And so if they have enrollment continuing to decline, that's a problem for them. That's a problem for big government. That's a problem for the teachers union. They want as many kids as possible in public school districts, and they want to make other choices difficult or impossible. So that's what they're doing with this. The other one that came up is Senate Bill 6261. So this has to do with homeschooling. And essentially it expands, it just makes it more difficult to homeschool your kids. It puts new hurdles in place to be able to homeschool your kids. So a couple things, and I actually thought Conservative Ladies of Washington put out a good explainer of some of the changes that this bill would institute for homeschool parents. So first, new mandatory declarations at ages 6 and 7. So you don't have compulsory attendance for school until the age of 8. But even before that, at the ages of 6 and 7, the state wants to know if you plan to homeschool your kids. And you have now a reporting requirement where you are required by law for both the age of 6 and the age of 7 to essentially submit this attestation to the government saying, yes, I'm going to homeschool your kids. And if you don't do that, then you're breaking a state law, an RCW, and it will legally be treated as truancy, like you're not educating your children. If you don't, at 6 and 7, file these declarations. The other thing that's interesting is OSPI controls this form. So now all these forms are written by OSPI, submitted to OSPI. So basically it expands their control and their reach and lets them know at ages 6 and 7 if you're going to be homeschooling your kids. I don't know what the hell they'll do with that information. I don't want them to have any information, frankly. If you're homeschooling your kids, that's your own business. I get it that one time. And this has always been, you at least at one point have to let the government know, right? At that compulsory age of 8. So attendance is compulsory at 8. So that's when traditionally homeschool parents need to let the school know, or the school district know, I'm homeschooling my child. But now they're interfering earlier and earlier. 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, making all these requirements that weren't there before. So it's going to make it more cumbersome for parents. But I also think that there's probably something more nefarious to it, where OSPI and the state and government want to track these kids from an earlier age and maybe try to intervene and get them in public schools. So now they're making it more difficult. They're going to make it more difficult if this passes to send your kid or to allow your kid to learn online. And maybe that's the environment that has suited them well. And then they're also going to make it more difficult to homeschool your kid. So while all these other states are adopting new school choice policies, Washington state is making it more and more difficult for parents to avoid public schools. And this is one of the worst states in the nation to send your child to a public school. So it's a really unfortunate timing, but it's all by design. All right, a follow-up to a segment we did yesterday on Unbelievable. Go ahead. I need a second sounder. Okay, on Unbelievable yesterday, we talked about Senator Jamie Peterson just flat out lying to constituents about the initiative killer bills. So that's Senate Bill 5973, House Bill 2259. And they basically are trying to complicate the initiative process by making it more cumbersome, this actually reminds me of the school choice stuff we just talked about. They're like, let's make this worse by making it more cumbersome. And so they want you to collect signatures before you can even collect signatures. They want to ban paying per signature for paid signature gatherers. And as we said, one of our viewers sent us an email. They said they were against the bill, emailed their state senator, who was Jamie Peterson, and got this response back where he tells multiple lies. And one of the most obvious lies was that he said the fee for filing an initiative is only $5. So he says that has all these people filing these nonsense initiatives that the Secretary of State's office just has to go and deal with. And as we pointed out on the show yesterday, the fee hasn't been $5 for like 2 years. The fee, they passed a law in 2024 increasing it to like $150. And Secretary of State Steve Hobbs testified last week saying that actually has helped deal with this issue that Senator Peterson is telling his constituent is such a problem of people shopping around for different ballot titles. So Nicole had emailed Senator Peterson, like, why are you putting like weird lies in emails to constituents who might not, seek out other answers? He did respond, which I thought was nice. That in and of itself is unbelievable. Dear Ms. Thompson, thank you for your message. I had forgotten about the fee change and I apologize for the error. The underlying point remains the same, though. The cost for attorneys and others borne by taxpayers to process each version of an initiative is dramatically in excess of $156. Yeah, but the underlying point doesn't remain the same. Because when it was $5, even the Secretary of State said, yeah, people would file a bunch of versions of the same thing. And the Secretary of State said last week that's not happening anymore because the fee was raised to $150, $156. And so the point he's out there making to constituents in these emails, and I'm sure it wasn't just this one constituent who sent it to us, the point he's making is just built on a lie. And it's not coming from me. It's coming from a Secretary of State who deals with these things of his own political party. So part of me wonders, did Senator Jamie Peterson reach back out to constituents he told these lies to and correct the record? And I think it's kind of weird that he didn't know when he's sponsoring a bill dubbed the initiative killer and making a point about the cost of filing initiatives. Don't you think it's a little weird that he didn't know that he would have had to vote for this? Unless I think maybe the Secretary of State did it on his own. But don't you think it's a little weird when he's sponsoring an initiative-related bill that he doesn't know that for the last 2 years it hasn't cost $5? I don't know. I have a hard time believing that. All right, we get to an update on the car tab story coming up next. First, if you are thinking about selling your home, reach out to our friend Wes Jones of sellwithwes.com, sellwithwes.com. Wes and his team have an innovative marketing strategy. They're going to get the most possible eyeballs on your listing, which of course means more feet in the door, more offers on the table. So it's all about making sure your listing stands out. Their marketing material is just second to none. We hear so many good things about Wes and his team. Anne says truly a 5-star experience from start to finish. Wes and his team are all about relationships, authenticity, and results. Over 3 years, Wes guided me through renovations, referred great contractors, and helped me make smart choices. She said when it was time to sell my childhood home, they staged it beautifully, hosted open houses that felt like neighborhood events, and brought in 200 plus people. We got 4 offers and sold for $100,000 over asking. You won't find a better team. Anne used Wes Jones to sell her home. You should too. Sellwithwes.com. Sellwithwes.com. It really just is a better way to sell your home. All right, I got to correct a rant I went on yesterday. So there's a lot of headlines out there about Senate Bill 6177. And I think it's because we all get spun up whenever we talk about car tabs because voters have 3 times asked for $30 car tabs, but then either it gets undone or they say, okay, you can have $30 car tabs. We're going to add all these other fees onto it. So there was this bill we discussed yesterday that would basically, we thought at the time, based on our interpretation of the bill, that it would create additional penalties for not having your car tabs renewed or putting them, renewing them in a different state and then living here. And so I misunderstood the point of the bill. So Senator Curtis King, a Republican, introduced it along with Democratic Senator Mark Elias. And really the new part of the law would be that they want to make it easier for the Washington State Patrol to go out and find people who haven't updated their car tabs. So there's this big thing right now. Part of it, I think, is the cost of car tabs has gotten so high, especially in areas with the Sound Transit 3 thing. But then people are protesting their government because they wanted $30 car tabs and they didn't get it. And the government, always threw out the will of voters. And so I think the latest numbers were something like 600,000 people in the state haven't renewed their car tabs, which is a pretty big sum. So let's just say that, I'm not even going to do the math, but let's say that 600,000 people would have had to pay, we'll just be generous, like $500. So that's a lot of money out of the transportation budget. And so Senator King is like, look, I get it that people are frustrated with the car tabs, but at the same time, that means that some people are paying it, other people are not. He's like, that's kind of unfair. But he said what he wants to do is say for the state patrol specifically, they can go out and proactively seek out, like in airport parking lots, people who, which I kind of think is messed up, to be honest. You come home, you're in the airport parking garage, and you come back and you got a ticket from the state patrol. So anyway, we'll get to that. So we asked, because I was just incorrect in my interpretation of the bill yesterday, we asked Senator King to come on the show and explain it to us today. Senator King, welcome back to Undivided.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here today.
All right. We'll get to the controversy over enforcing the law, I guess. But it's already, unlawful not to have tabs or to have expired tabs. So how does this bill sort of make it more unlikely that somebody would be willing to do that?
Well, so the bill came about because I was in a meeting with the State Patrol, and the State Patrol says, well, we cannot cite a person for having expired tabs unless the car is moving. And I'm going, well, that's ridiculous. It's like, that makes it harder to enforce the laws that we have on our books, which is what most of us want to do, is enforce the laws. And so that's why I started to think about, well, how do we do this? So if you're parked along the road even in a neighborhood or whatever, but if you're parked on the street, you're parked on the street. Or if you're parked in a Safeway parking lot, as an example, or a better example would be the airport. If you're in the parking lot of the airport, you can go through and drive through the parking lot. You can look and find who has not has proper tabs. And I would tell you, we believe we're talking about millions and millions of dollars that come to transportation.
Yeah.
And and the thing that really bothers me about it all, because there's thousands of people that pay their car tabs. They've done their duty, they've paid it, and now you have these people that are trying to skirt the law, and right, wrong, or indifference. And some people say, well, this is our way of expressing ourselves, that we don't like what's going on. Well, I'm sorry, you're breaking the law. I mean, I understand what people are trying to do. You look at, everybody wants to say, well, what happened to $30 car tabs? Well, you're still paying $30 for your car tabs, but now you're paying weight fees. You're paying all kinds of other fees ancillary to that car tab. It's just a way of replacing the money that when we went to the $30 fee, that's there. I don't think I voted for all of those types of things, but that is the law. That's what's happening. You still got a $30 car tab, but I know how people look at it. But the idea is the law is the law. We need to enforce it. And it's not fair that some people pay it and others are trying to not have to do that.
Yeah, so you'd be looking at, I think people have gotten frustrated, especially in areas where there's the Sound Transit, tax, where they're paying like $1,000 for a reasonably priced vehicle, which is just insane. But what do you say to, Tim Eyman, who says, all these people over the years 3 times voted for $30 car tabs with the expectation that, the cost of their car tabs would be lower. And so they're doing this as a way to protest the government.
You're breaking the law. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You do have a $30 car tab. It's just that we've added all these other things to it, right, wrong, or indifferent. You still are paying a $30 car tab. That's just verbiage. I understand that.
Yeah.
And I understand their frustration, because it's my feeling that when ST3 was passed, they're basically were misinformed by the people that were supporting it, and the amount that people had to pay for their car tabs for ST3 was substantially higher than what was presented to them as, well, here's an example of what you have to pay. And you found people that were expecting $300 or $400 increases, and they found it was $600, $800 to $1,000 increase. They voted for it.
Yeah.
I mean, now they voted, in my opinion, they voted for it under false pretenses, but they still voted for it.
Yeah.
And so my message is, if you don't like it, when ST4 comes out, you better think about how you're going to vote for it. But the idea is this: we just need to be able to be fair with everybody and to say, you need to pay your car tabs. It's the law.
I get it. But is it fair? Is the government being fair to everybody? No, because constantly and consistently when people say, I don't want this, you say, too bad, you're getting it. And not everyone voted for sound transit. I get it. That's the way democracy works. You're overruled or whatever it is. And I do believe in law and order. So I really struggle with this one. I mean, I personally pay my car tabs. I'm not going to deal with the drama of getting pulled over and all these things. I asked you guys in our daily subscriber show poll on Patreon, Locals, and X if you have ever intentionally, that's key, not paid for or renewed your car tabs intentionally. Nicole?
No,
Okay,
my tabs are always renewed.
Yeah, I've forgotten once and been late, but never intentionally. 80% of you say yes, you are paying your car tabs. Some comments. Sick of Wah says, I buy them every year but refuse to put them on. That's my way of it. I mean, that just causes a problem for you. That just causes a problem for you, not anybody else. Because you just get pulled over and explain to a cop that I don't know. You're funny. Gabriel went 3 to 4 years without paying, got stopped plenty of times and received several tickets, only got tickets from the Blue City cops. And you also, I guess, could weigh, depending on how much your car tabs are, because for some people, for a family, it might be a couple $1,000s. You might say, let's say I even get a ticket every other year, okay? It doesn't go on my driving record, so is that worth it to me? And does it actually cost me less to get a ticket? And in some cases, the answer to that would be yes. Casey in Seebeck says, I'm too afraid to break the law. I'm a heterosexual white male. They'd for sure lock me up and throw away the key. Oh yeah, you're doomed, Casey. You're absolutely doomed. Joel, I have a business and a name to uphold, so I do pay my tabs, but I totally get why people don't do it. Yeah. Matthew, I'll just fit this in quick. Last car, no renewal, and current car, no renewal. Only 2 parking tickets over the last 5+ years, way less than what I would have paid in annual tabs. So, hey, I'm not going to judge on this one, okay? Not going to judge. I understand it. All right, we'll get to national news, including checking in on what's happening in Minneapolis coming up next. First, if you're concerned that we're in a tech bubble, an AI bubble, you don't know how that might impact the strength of your retirement portfolio tomorrow, our friend Zach Abraham with Bulwark Capital is having one of his free live webinars. This is a New Year Reset live webinar happening January 29, 3:30 p.m. Pacific. On it, Zach is going to discuss the impact AI could have on the 2026 market, how Bulwark Capital is focused on risk management, and how they incorporate value-based principles in managing retirement portfolios. Plus, he'll do a full reveal of how Bulwark is always looking for opportunities to lower risk, lower cost, to give your retirement as much upside as possible. So register now for the free New Year Reset live webinar, January 29th. And while you're there at knowyourriskpodcast.com, you can subscribe to Zach's daily market recap. And get your own Know Your Risk portfolio review. KnowYourRiskPodcast.com, KnowYourRiskPodcast.com. Okay, Tom Holman is now reporting for duty in Minneapolis, and this is after Bovino got the boot, I guess, to a different position, and maybe President Trump just thought, we need to lower the temperature by having someone come in who hasn't been there before. And so Tom Homan came in. He immediately met with the governor and the mayor of Minneapolis. He said, today I met with Governor Walz, Mayor Frey, and top law enforcement officials to discuss the issues on the ground in Minnesota. We all agree that we need to support our law enforcement officers and get criminals off the streets. While we don't agree on everything, these meetings were a productive starting point, and I look forward to more conversations with key stakeholders in the days ahead. President Trump has been clear he wants American cities to be safe and secure, for law-abiding residents, and they will be. The reactions were interesting because I thought, okay, they go into a private meeting. How are they going to then come out of the private meeting and characterize it, right? Is it going to be political? I mean, Holman came out of the private meeting and said, hey, I thought it was actually pretty productive and we agree on a lot of things. So I think Walz handled it better than the mayor of Minneapolis. So Walz told an independent journalist from Wisconsin that he understands some of the points Tom Holman is making.
Look, I don't agree with Tom Holman's philosophy on things, but I do understand that he is law enforcement and he understands right from wrong and he knows. I mean, no matter how much they were trying to gaslight us, the layman on the street said, I don't really think it's good policing to run around and throw canisters and kick people down and think that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe he agrees with some of what is happening and he thinks Tom Holman wants law and order. They might disagree with some of the clashes and confrontations that happened, but he told CNN's Anderson Cooper that he did find the meeting to be productive.
It was progress. Look, I never got a call from Bovino or Noam. Never. Nothing. No, nothing. When they're coming here, and Tom Holman landed last night, and he called me last night and asked if he could have a meeting, and he was there at 9 o'clock. So, look, I think that's progress, but they started this fire, so we're not giving anybody credit for putting it out. But right now, what we need is a return to normalcy by these ICE agents out of here.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe the best, because he's not going to give in and say, yeah, we're happy now, because these people don't want immigration enforcement at all. They just don't. If they wanted immigration enforcement, they wouldn't have pushed back initially to President Trump's agenda that he ran on. And Mayor Frey, is it Frey or Fry? I don't even know. I'm going to say Fry. Mayor Fry, he put out a post. I'll just read it quick. He said, today, Chief O'Hara and I met with Border Czar Homan and had a productive conversation. I reiterated that my main ask is for Operation Metro Surge to end as quickly as possible. Public safety works best when it's built on community trust, not tactics that create fear or division. And he said this, I also made it clear that Minneapolis does not and will not enforce federal immigration laws, and that we will remain focused on keeping our neighborhoods and streets safe. Okay. Nobody is asking you to enforce immigration laws. It's not your job. Nobody's ever said that it's your job. It's the federal government's job. They're just asking that you let them do their jobs. And right now, that's not what's happening in your city. You're encouraging people to go out and stop them from doing their jobs. No one is expecting, nor do I think anyone wants your police department especially to be out there conducting the duties of federal law enforcement. But just don't get in the way. Make it easier. I mean, President Trump and his press secretary said, hey, if they're willing to give us all the hand over all the criminal illegals in their jails, we might be on our way. But they won't do that. So it's not just, oh, we're not going to go out there and proactively help immigration. You are thwarting their efforts. You're making it more difficult on the streets with the harassment, and also by not letting them go in and saying, hey, we've got some illegals in our jail and in our prisons. Do you want them? Because we will willingly hand them over. And especially when he's saying we will remain focused on keeping our neighborhoods and streets safe. Well, getting rid of violent illegals makes your neighborhoods more safe. So if you really cared about that, you would help them in their mission that they're endeavoring. But I don't know if you will help them with that. All right, crazy, crazy story published in The Nation. Woke has gone too far. This woman is so woke that she didn't report her rape because she didn't think it would be productive or serve society for her rapist to go to prison. Can't really make this stuff up. So the author is Anna Krathamer. She's a writer and doctoral candidate in English literature at Columbia. There it is, Columbia University. I wonder which professor indoctrinated her to believe that it would be societally wrong to report her rapist because prison bad. So the headline, I'm not going to read all of this, but I'll read some key excerpts. Why I didn't report my rape. In 2021, 6 men sexually assaulted me in a Las Vegas hotel room. Something more than abolitionism prevented me from reporting the crime. So she's a police abolitionist. And that just shows you how dumb that philosophy is. But at least I will say before I read this, okay, at least she has a commitment to abolition. I am so in favor of police abolition that 6 men could attack me in a hotel room and I'm not going to call the police. I mean, that is absolutely insane. But, abolitionist, at least she's not the abolitionist type that'll say, abolish the police, and then call 911 and say, why aren't you here? She said, they're in that hotel a little over 4 years ago. And this is horrifying. She said, I was raped by a group of men during a 3-day trip I took to Las Vegas with 2 of my best friends. Of the rape, which lasted all night, I remember both too much and too little. I never did anything about it. I didn't tell anyone who could have done something about it either, such as the hotel staff or the Las Vegas police. I never considered taking any kind of action at the time, but ever since the possibility has haunted me as a particularly cruel version of a path not taken. And although in my mind the hotel phone remains permanently available to my call, that isn't true either, and in more ways than one. She goes on to say, the simple answer to the question of why I never reported the rape is that I believe in the abolition of police and prisons. The less simple, less articulate answer is that to pursue prosecuting and potentially incarcerating other people is inconceivable to me, even when they have hurt me more than I could have ever believed possible. Because of this, I can only vocalize what I want in negative and inherently impossible terms, that all I want is for it to never have happened. The prospect of being a participant in other people's incarceration is as alien to me as anything could be, to the point that I can only conceive of it in childish terms, how silly and strange it would be to have a group of people incarcerated at my expense when doing so would do nothing to fix the damage they have already so thoroughly done. Oh my God. And this is a who what? A doctoral candidate in English literature at Columbia University? A 5-year-old could poke holes in your argument. And I get it. This is a victim of a heinous crime, but she's putting it all out there for everyone to hear. And, you know, you can make the police, I believe in police abolition and the abolition of prisons. But for you to say that it would be childish and silly to have a group of people incarcerated at my expense when doing so would do nothing to fix the damage they've caused, what about the damage they might do in the future? You think that you're the only person, the only woman who they've attacked or will attack? So how selfish, self-absorbed main character syndrome is that? That you think, oh, this won't do anything. What about the next people they might rape? What about the next woman who they might rape? You're not thinking about them, are you? Nicole, can you mute my mic so I can sneeze quick? I mean, it's just an insane way of thinking, but I think it's this. And what does she want us to do? Applaud? Applaud her bravery? What does she want us to do? Who even publishes something like this? Oh, I can't have these people go to prison on my behalf. That would be silly. And just let somebody else be attacked. Absolutely insane. The mindset. These are the people in our higher education institutions. All right, we'll get to comments from the live stream coming up next. First, down in Olympia right now, in fact, the hearing we were watching before the bills we were interested in was about housing policy and just trying to make things more difficult if you're a landlord in the state of Washington. So we're tracking some of those bills as well. Our friends at the Rental Housing Association of Washington are down there every day during this session trying to get through to lawmakers about what landlords need and the things that are standing in their way of providing homes and affordable places for people to live, which I thought is what Democrats wanted. So if you want to become a member of RHA, you can help with that work, but also they can help you navigate this complex world of rules and regulations that we're in right now. RHAWA.org, RHAWA.org, Washington's trusted resource, empowering housing providers. All right, some comments from the live stream on Mary Bridge officially closing its gender clinic. Y says it's a win for a gender clinic for children to close. I agree with you on that. I wish it came out of introspection and a change in heart, but a win is a win, and I will take this. Man, we got to take wins where we can get them. Mm-hmm. Red Llama Mama. Is it behind us, though? If Democratic leadership comes back, won't they undo all of this?
I hope not. I think it's covered. I think that part of it is that they're just scared of the mob. And if they just close it, and then even if different leadership comes up, they just keep it closed.
Yeah, I think it gives them an out for something many of them want an out from anyway.
Right. So I wish they would take a stand and let everybody know that it's ridiculous because they're a medical facility and those are not medical, worthy procedures.
Yeah.
But I hope that they actually see the light and they're just, protecting themselves from the mob.
Yeah, I think that's boys and girls sports too, where it's sort of like, God, this is so stupid, but I can't back out now. So I hope somebody else makes me back out and forces my hand. So yeah, we will see. on our whistleblower who did testify, but we don't want to rush going through that, so we'll talk about it tomorrow. It happened kind of mid-show. Country guy, the IRS should look into the books of the nonprofits and see if there's something there which would lead to revocation of status. Yeah, and we'll see what Commerce and the AG's office is doing. I don't think they're going to revoke the status of the urban leagues, but maybe could change their behavior moving forward. Meditation music. Thank you, Brandi, for all your hard work and keeping us updated on our state's business and how we are affirmed to just how corrupt our leaders are, and we see and feel the destruction of our state. Well, I hate to make you sad every day, but I'm happy to keep you updated. On the Dems wanting to on the Dems wanting to virtually end online school. Moon Goddess, I thank God every day that all 3 of my children are adults now, and I don't have a dog in this race anymore. I only have 1 grandchild, and he lives in South Carolina. Lord knows they're not doing this in South Carolina. Jay Can, and actually, I do think we all have a dog in the fight because kids are indoctrinated in schools. It leads to all these societal issues, and they're not being taught much because the test scores are bad. So we all have a dog in the fight of our public education system. Jay Can, Dems want everyone to leer in public schools only. That will never not be funny. I need to get... Shirley created these sweatshirts that have the Quality Leering Center logo. I definitely need one of those. I'm going to have to look online. Let's see. Jerry, grand boys, they can't indoctrinate students if they're not in the indoctrination centers. Exactly.
I mean, even as far as going after the virtual academy, which is, somewhat regulated so that the material is the same. You just don't have the people there to...
Yeah, Chuck Heller, just have parents say their kids identify as 5-year-olds until they're the age of 18. Yeah, sorry, my kid's identifying as 5 years old again this year. No can do. On the GOP lawmaker pushing the car tab crackdown. Merwin Wren, many of us follow the law, including car tabs, simply because it is the law. Not that we will be fined, arrested, or simply fined, but because it's the right thing to do.
I also don't mind that people don't. To me, someone that pays it, I don't care that somebody else is not, because I'm go fight back.
And it's like they have enough money. It's just if there hadn't been so much tomfoolery around the car tab issue, I would feel different, obviously. But isn't it interesting how Democrats were pushing these bills so that cops can't pull you over for non-moving violations, like for crack in your windshield or a crack in your tail light or no tabs. But now they're like, actually, now that the conservatives are the ones without tabs, let's go after them. Come on. On Homan and Walz saying the meeting was productive. This is funny. Son Miller says he should wear the medal he received from Obama. Yeah, I'd seen this a couple weeks ago with Tom Homan getting honored by Obama with like the highest civil service award. I think it was in 2016 before Obama left office for his work on deportations. And I thought that's AI or some nonsense. No, it's true. He literally got awarded with the highest award that a civil servant can receive for his work on deportations. And now he's leading the Gestapo. It's very strange.
Well, at first, I feel this conversation and this Minnesota issue has changed people's perspective on him, because everybody, all the Dems hated him. Like, they all hated him. And now they're like, oh, I understand him. He's a good guy. Like, they're looking for an out. And they're like, oh, Obama approved of him. So, like, okay, we'll go for this. We'll let it happen with this guy.
He still wants deportations.
Be that guy.
Right.
Tom.
Fresh start in Minneapolis. A couple super chats. Jeff, thank you for all the info. I needed this. I don't know which story that's in reference to, but you're welcome. Papa Woody, Brandi, can you ask Bob who cuts his hair next time you get the chance? Probably not going to use my one chance I get.
Probably his wife.
It's probably his wife. The Raconteurs report. Brandi, I plan to run for governor of Washington State. Good for you. Get out there, spread the word. I don't know what your platform will be, but I support anyone running for office. Okay, we'll get to our closing sanity check on the immigration front coming up next. First, if you're thinking about replacing your roof, replacing attic insulation, getting your gutters repaired, cleaned, whatever it is, reach out to our friends at Valentine Roofing. They've been awarded the best roofing company in the Pacific Northwest for 3 years in a row. Right now, it's all about temperature. And I don't know if you knew this, but up to 25% of your home's heat loss is through your attic. So if your furnace is working overtime, it might be time to call Valentine. And right now, when you bundle attic insulation with any new roof, you'll save an additional 10% off the entire project. Plus, Valentine has exceptional financing options built around your budget. And as I mentioned, if your gutters got banged up in those recent windstorms, maybe your siding is failing to keep your home insulated and warm, Valentine can help with that too. So Call 206 Roofing. Call 206 Roofing to lock in your winter bundle savings. That's hard to say. Winter bundle savings. Call 206 Roofing. Make sure you tell them you heard about them right here on Undivided. And with that, let's get to our closing sanity check. All right, we turn to Senator John Fetterman, who's just become more sane by the day. And he says, as it pertains to sanctuary jurisdictions, he's over it.
In Minnesota, Jacob Fry, the mayor, says he doesn't believe that they should cooperate with those federal enforcement laws. So you do believe that they should be cooperating more with the Trump administration?
What I do believe is that if there are law enforcement that have these people in custody that are behaving in criminal behavior, then yes, they should cooperate with that, and those individuals, if they're convicted, should be deported.
And so your stance on sanctuary cities has changed then. Is that right, Senator?
I think it's evolved because the dynamics and the circumstances, with respects to our border has.
Good for him. I'm okay with people changing their mind, coming around to sanity. There was an invasion at our southern border. People were able to flee to sanctuary jurisdictions, utilize resources meant for Americans, many of them not vetted, many of them criminals, and he's over it. And I have long been over it. So maybe we can see the tide turn a little bit when people start to realize the benefit and the good things that happen after we deport all these people from our country. That has been today's Sanity Check. That has been today's episode of Undivided. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. If you want to subscribe to support our show, you can do it for just $5 a month. Go to undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com. Click on the banner that says support the show, and you're well on your way. We'll have another live show tomorrow at noon.